what happens to your heart when you are talking to someone and you start kind of involving yourself in their life? You know?
Well, yeah, I do whenever, I try to have it be as back and forth as much as I can. Like, if they're saying anything that I've gone through something similar, I try for it to be very much more a conversation than an interview. So at any time when I think that, I have something to offer back, that I will get that. And, a lot of times the stories are very affecting, and I think I just cry a lot. That's probably the shortest answer. When there's a story is very sad, and that person's crying, I will cry with them. I will feel with them. So, I think a lot of the power of the blog kind of comes from sitting in a moment with somebody and feeling what they're feeling. Yeah.
So do you find it hard to walk away in some situations?
Some situations, yeah, very much so. And especially when I travel, I carry a lot of cash on me, and I just, because it's just, I guess there's this rule in journalism that you're never supposed to insert yourself into the story or help somebody, but it's like I'm not, so many of the stories overseas are about how people can't feed their families, or how, people, their parents need a surgery and they can't afford, and just so it's like whenever I can help, I do. So yeah, it's if I don't have to walk away without helping, I won't. But yeah, sometimes it is very difficult to walk away, especially when somebody's in a very bad circumstance.
How about your emotions, not the monetary side of things?
Right.
How does it affect you?
I think I'm pretty even keeled towards it, especially now, because I've heard so many of the different stories. When there's a series I'm doing, like the pediatric cancer series or the refugee series, where it's very sad stories over and over and over again, it's very difficult. And I always have a moment during those series where it's just kind of break down a little bit. But other than that, I think a lot of times you get real compassion fatigue when you are hearing all these sad things and you don't feel like you're able to do anything about them. I think the act of listening and the act of telling the person's story alone is a form of doing something. I think it adds value to them, and I think it kind of helps to alleviate whatever they're going through. So I think that helps. I think the feeling that I'm being able to do something kind of helps manage the emotions and kind of manage the feelings. So, yeah.
What kinds of questions really help open people?
So normally the questions that I ask in the beginning are me just trying to find a story. The questions that I normally lead with are, what are your greatest struggle right now? How has your life turned out differently than you expected it to? I like that one. But after that, I'm trying to get away from my planned questions as soon as possible, and I'm trying to kind of get into a conversation. The most interesting stories and the most interesting answers come when I'm not asking questions that I planned, but I'm leaning into the person, I'm listening very closely to their story, and I'm asking questions based on my curiosity of what they're saying.
Do you find that there is a common denominator? Let's just say in New York, have you found a common denominator in all these people? Any particular common denominator?
I have tried to avoid, the short answer is no. I try to, I think anytime you feel like there's a commonality to all human experience, you're going to find an exception, at a various time, so I try, I think the main theme or the main commonality that I found as a storyteller that interests me the most is how willing people are to talk. You know what I mean? Beyond that, I try, because as a storyteller, my goal is to find what's different in every person. If I was sitting down at somebody and looking for what they shared with everybody else, it'd be a very boring vlog. You know what I mean? So it's like really what I focus on, and my goal is to find out what it is about that person that's unlike the 10,000 other people that I've talked to. And so that's kind of the lens, and that's kind of the frame that I approach everything.
So do you consider yourself more a storyteller than a photographer?
Oh yeah. I stopped viewing myself as a photographer a long time ago. And the funny thing is so many people still view me as like, I can't tell you how many articles I've had to read about like my photography being this and that. It's like, man, I stopped thinking of myself as a photographer so many years ago, and like so many people still do. The photography to me isn't even that important. It's all about the story. The photography, I will spend over an hour with somebody, and the photography takes up 30 seconds of that time, and the rest is just the story, and that's what I focus on the most.
How do you choose the people?
I try to keep it as random as possible. The process takes about an hour, so if there's one thing that I'm probably looking for the most, it's somebody who looks like they have time. That's a lot of people sitting on benches. I have a lot of cigarette smokers because cigarette smoking takes time. I look for somebody who looks like they're in a moment of rest or a moment of relaxation because I know the process is going to take a long time. Yeah.
Have you been able to follow up with anyone?
Occasionally in very, unique circumstances. A lot of times, like I said, when I participate in somebody's story or raise money with them, I keep track of them. I don't ever systematically or intentionally look for people to find out how stories, because again, I'm too busy, meeting new people and kind of telling their stories.
How would your approach be different if you were the person
It's difficult. It's like it's the more time you spend with somebody, the more difficult it is to kind of to ask those questions. There is something about like the barrier of stranger that both makes that person more comfortable talking and that makes me more comfortable asking the questions. So, as far as the answer is they shouldn't be different. Just because it's harder to do, the questions shouldn't be different. I think that the main thing is just ask. Like, you give the person permission at the beginning. Anything you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer. But after that, don't censor yourself. Don't censor yourself out of a respect for decorum or privacy. Ask. Give the person the agency to choose whether to answer, but then ask. There's no question that I will not ask because I think it's too personal or too private. And people almost always answer.
I see that you're married.
Okay.
I see that you're married. Does your wife travel with you?
She does occasionally. She's pregnant now. I was traveling for 2 months. She joined me in Australia and New Zealand. Yeah. So she normally travels with me a lot, but she kind of picks and chooses because this is exhausting. When I travel, it's exhausting. I was. I circumnavigated the globe. I was in 6 different countries, and when I'm in these countries, I'm working so hard, like all the time. Then you're packing up. So yeah, I'm going home tonight for the first time in 2 months. So that's my birthday present, going home. And my apartment flooded, so it's not even really home. But home is where the dogs are, right? So I'm gonna get to cuddle with my dogs tonight, so I'm excited about that.
How long does it take you to process one story?
You mean so?
Like you go out and you find the person. From that point,
3 hours.
3 hours.
For a long one, because that's probably the longest though. Anywhere between an hour and 3 hours. Because the writing process itself takes a long time because I have to. The interview process can take over an hour a piece, and then it takes probably an hour to find the people because for every people you see that I've stopped and I've gotten this kind of intimate story out of, you're not seeing the 4 people who rejected me and the 2 people who I interviewed but weren't quite comfortable with the process, so we didn't quite get to a quiet place. So for each story that makes it on the blog, there's probably 2 or 3 hours of work that goes into it. Yeah.
I work with high school and college students, teaching them about oral histories. What encouragement do you have for high school or young people doing the same?
Yeah, well, I think that, and I tell that, I made a living. There's so many journalists out there who are trying to find the perfect story that's going to make their career. And here I come out of nowhere and have a bigger audience than most newspapers, just telling the stories of random people that I stop. So, I think the key lesson is that there's fascinating stories that can hold and captivate the interest of millions of people all around you. Like, there's just no absence of fantastic, interesting stories in the world, and you just kind of have the faith. Like, I just walk up to every person with a faith that if I sit down with them and start and really focus on them for an hour, there's going to be a story in there that will captivate and fascinate millions of people. And I'm almost always rewarded for that faith. Yeah.
One last question, guys.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask, what breed of dogs do you have, and what are their names?
So we have a Chihuahua. We always have old dogs. My wife runs a senior dog rescue called Susie Senior Dog. So we always have old dogs. That's our common denominator. Right now, we have a Chihuahua named Simon and a Pit Bull named Sarah. And Simon is scarier than Sarah. Sarah is scared of Simon. Yeah. So those are our dogs.
Thank you.